So, welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Jakey. Once again, live without a net and without pauses, stops, notes, without notes today. If you are watching this on video on my YouTube channel, hi. Hi, I'm looking right into your eyes. Can I see your soul? I hope so. Can you see mine? Probably, because I lay it bare here every week on the Tuesdays with Jakey podcast. I am in my house, which I am slowly getting accustomed to. I guess it's been 1 week. This is for Tuesday, November 23rd, by the way, 2021. I am recording this on Monday, November 22nd. And I have been alone in my house here now in Yellow Pine, Idaho for 1 week. And right behind me is where the magic happens. You know what they say? It is where the magic happens, because that's where I've been doing my writing and where I will soon resume my painting. Probably tonight after this podcast, I'll bust the paints out, but I got my whole little rig set up and it feels good and it feels nice to be actually slowly assimilating into not only this house, but into this town. I just got back from a nice walk. I went out for about 75 minutes. And was just going to get some fresh air. I did my writing for the day. It was heavy stuff. I'll get into that in a little bit. But I went out and I saw my buddy Darwin. Darwin is 82 years old. He's quite a character. White hair, missing one of his front teeth. Loves to sing karaoke. That's where I first met him. People were like, where do you see Darwin sing karaoke? Darwin's thing is, he can sing karaoke all right, but he doesn't care if you have the song or not. If you don't have the song, he just tells the karaoke guy to not play anything, and he does it a cappella, which is a bit of a hoot, and I've very much enjoyed it. And the last time that we did karaoke this season, I think it was the last time I remember, he brought the house down with a version of the Divinals' I Touch Myself and was rubbing his genital area over his pants during those parts of the songs. And there were a couple of girls in there who were like 13. I do not think Darwin is a pedo in the least bit. And he wasn't doing it to be sexy. He was just acting out the song. But it was definitely bizarre. I think I have a video of that I put in my Instagram stories way back. But if you want to learn a little bit about Darwin, let me direct your attention to the notes for this episode. So if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes, Apple Podcasts, you just go in and there will be a little link to a video called Winter in Yellow Pine. It'll give you a little sense of what the town's about. It's only 3 minutes. Won't take long to watch. It's got a lot of video of the town. It was from 2016. You can see Lorin in there. You can see Mushroom Steve. You see a guy who's referred to as the owner of the tavern, which was Lorin's ex. They refer to him as the owner and her as something else, and he's got his arm around her. And I saw that video before I knew much about Buddy. I still don't know much about him, but he's passed away. But I didn't know that it was Lorin's boyfriend at the time, and it looks really weird. When he's putting his arm around her, she looks so uncomfortable. And I brought it up to her, and she's just shrugged. And I'm like, I told her, I was like, I saw that video, and I thought you were in danger. Like, I thought this was a predator, a sexual predator who you did not enjoy having his arm put around you. She's like, yeah, it was my boyfriend. I don't like being touched. That was kind of her vibe and her attitude. But the Idaho Farm Bureau produced this video in 2016 about what a Yellow Pine winter is like. So if you want to you get some footage of the tavern and some footage of the town and a little background on what the town's all about. So I'd highly recommend checking that out. But I went out for a walk today, and I went up the hill, which is the term they use because you go up a hill. I went past the post office, past Alpine Village, which are a set of cabins that the Holloway Steve and Sue rent out. And I just kept walking, and I walked till there were no more houses left, past Gay's house, this old woman Gay, and she's got the last house on the street, last house in town. And I had been told, like, yeah, she's the last house. And once you get past there, that's where basically her house is where they stop plowing. And then the road just continues on up to Stibnite, the old closed down gold mine. But I went out for a nice walk, and I walked well past Gay's house and just walked till I didn't feel like walking anymore, and then turned back around and took some nice pictures. And then on the way back, I saw Darwin and his little pooches, so I went over. Thankfully, I'd gotten a little tour a few weeks ago during the fire training when I got to drive the little fire truck. The woman who I was with, which is Billy Horner. Billy showed me around and was like, this is that person's house and that person's. So I saw Darwin futzing about in his yard and went over there and chatted with him for a while. And Darwin was telling me that his sister and her husband are headed to Reno. They work at a flea market in Cascade during the warm months selling various goods. There's this kind of gypsy flea market that's set up every day that sells like tie-dye dresses and I don't know. I don't know what else. I never actually pulled into it, but you just pass it on the side of the road and there's all these like 10 by 10 tents. And never stopped in. Always thought maybe I would, but like you could just tell it wasn't, there was nothing I really was going to find there that I really had to have. I don't think. Maybe cool trucker hats or something. But Darwin's daughter and her husband spend a lot of time checking on Darwin, coming up here, staying with him. I think, as far as I can tell, I don't know that they have a place to live. I think they just kind of live in their camper. But Darwin starts explaining to me like that they're going for 10 days to this big Christmas show in Reno and going to be selling all sorts of goods, and that she sells tie-dye dresses, jewelry, and other merchandise, as he put it. And was like, oh, her husband makes these beautiful cutting boards. He's a woodworker. And he was like, let me show you some. She's scrolling through. There's beautiful cutting boards. I was really excited. And he told me they were $100. I was like, I'm not going to spend that on a cutting board. But they were really beautiful, like all different shades of wood kind of pressed and glued together. And I'm sure finished in some way that makes them nice for cutting boards. And then the design started getting more and more elaborate. And there was one that looks like a piano that was gorgeous. And he wanted $275 for that. But Darwin kept swiping. And he swiped one picture too far. And it was a picture of this girl in her early 20s. Tons of makeup, puffy duck lips, fake eyelashes, fake fingernails. And I was like, is that your daughter, Darwin? Knowing full well that was not going to be his daughter. And the picture was like so perfectly filtered. It was definitely a picture, like, it's not a picture he took, or that it wasn't just a regular old selfie. It was very Instagrammed up. And he was like, oh, no, that picture, I don't know who that is. That just popped into my phone. And I know he's on Facebook a lot because he's told me that. So I assume it was some friend request that he got on Facebook from one of those women that doesn't really exist. I believe those things are catfishing or some sort of scam. But he was like, look at this girl. She must be 24. I couldn't keep up with her. I couldn't keep up with an 80-year-old woman. And I'm 82. And I was just had a nice laugh. And I thought he'd swipe off of it. And he just kept sitting there staring at her. And I so badly wanted to pull my phone out and get a picture of him with her in the frame. But I didn't think that would be wise at that juncture. Maybe next time I'm hanging out. Hey, Thorman, let me see that picture again. Pose with it. I don't have enough good pictures of people from up here, and I'm going to try to change that. I need to get pictures of these characters. But Darwin and I kept chatting for a while, and I asked, how often his daughter and son come up, and they come up a lot to check on me, but they'll be gone for the next 10 days. He's like, but I have this thing I wear around my neck, so if I ever fall, I can push the button and it alerts my daughter, and then she can call someone up here to come check on me. And I was like, well, I should give you my number, Darwin, and you should give it to your daughter, because I'll be here all winter. So if anything ever happens and she's having a hard time getting a hold of whoever she gets a hold of, like, might as well add me to the list of people that would call. And he was like, oh, good thing. Good to know. And I was like, yo, also, just call me sometime if you need help with anything. You're moving something heavy around. And he's like, well, my daughter tells me not to move anything heavy, so if I have anything you need to do, Jake, I'll call you. And then he starts explaining how he's got these two sort of like, almost like tents. They're not really full structures, but they're like wall tents. One he parks his car in, the other I don't know what's inside. And he said, well, in the winter, the two things I have to do to take care of this property are I I brush the snow off of each of these roofs and in the winter. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, well, last year I was out here doing that, brushing the snow off, and I fell down, and the snow was so soft I couldn't get a handle to like push myself up, and I don't know what was going to happen, but eventually Texas Sue came by, and she saw me kind of flailing my arms, and she stopped, and she helped me get out of the snow, and whew, it's a good thing she was here. And I was like, well, what would have happened if she wasn't here? And he's like, I would have become a Darwin icicle. And I'm like, well, be careful, man, and if you need any help, hit me up. And so we traded numbers, so now I have Darwin's number, and I played with his pooches for a while. He's got a couple of pooches, one named Valley and one named Chica. Valley, like Valley County, the name of the county we live in. That's also where Macomb is and where Cascade is. But we're in Valley County, so he named his dog Valley, and then Valley had a litter, and he gave them all away except for this one pooch named Chica. And I was just throwing a ball back and forth up and down the dirt road, and they were chasing it and having a good time. And carried some doggy treats in my pocket. I had bought a big Costco size thing of dog treats for the tavern, and I put a bunch in my pocket recently because I have spent most of my life afraid of dogs, and been slowly getting over it. I'd say over the past, really, I guess probably the past 15, 16, 17 years. I had to make a real distinct effort to get over it. So I was brought up fearing dogs. My mother was deathly afraid of dogs. Didn't matter how friendly the dog was, how nice it looked. My mother would freak the fuck out and start screaming whenever a dog came close to her. And imparted in me a fear of dogs because of that, and then would always tell me, like, you never know a dog, they can just go crazy and bite you, and imprinted that into me from a very young age. So I've always always been afraid of dogs I don't know, and slowly been starting to get to learn to like dogs better. And now for the most part, I'm fine with them. But still, sometimes, every now and then, if a dog approaches me in a weird way, I can tend to freeze up, and then that, of course, I get scared, I send out weird energy to them, it gets them freaked out, and then they start barking, and then that makes me more freaked out. So today I took a pocket full of dog treats and also went out with my ski poles, because just in case you need to keep another animal at bay, whether that be a dog or a wolf or God knows what kind of animal. Could be the two-legged kind. Could be some meth heads up in these hills. A lot of good a ski pole will do, right? But yeah, I went out walking with my ski poles, and Dawn was like, you going skiing? You don't look like you're dressed for going skiing? Because I just had jeans and sneakers on and a heavy coat. And I was like, no, just, you never know if you're going to get off-road and you need it for balance or whatever. But really, I was carrying them just because I was afraid of dogs. I also had an uncle who kept Dobermans in a junkyard, and literal junkyard dogs. And I used to go visit the junkyard with him often. God knows what kind of illicit business he had going on there with a huge fat guy named Tiny. And he used to scare the fuck out of me with his dogs, and he used to get the dogs on their chains. They're actual chain link chains and black studded collars, and would oftentimes just have the dogs chase me into a corner, and he would hold them just inches from my face with them barking and salivating, and that certainly didn't help things either. But he told me back in those days that was to help me get over my fear of dogs, much like when he would regularly punch me in the face. He told me that was to toughen me up and teach me how to take a punch. I don't think that was his real intention. Maybe it was part of his intention, but I think he just liked abusing people, much like he was abused by his dad. But yeah, anyway, so that's shit I don't need to fully get into today. But yeah, that's part of why I'm afraid of dogs. And my friend Drew had a couple of dogs. He had a really mean-looking pit bull named Scandal. Scandalous was really her name, and she went by Scandal. And then he's got another one now. Scandal's gone, sadly, but he's got another one named Cholula, who's definitely possessed. Mostly nice, but definitely fucking nuts. And when I started going over his house regularly in the mid to late 2000s, I guess, 2007 probably, is when I really started going to his house on a regular basis and started getting used to his dogs. And then it got to the point where I could dog sit for him and go take them out myself. And so I'm not often scared by dogs nowadays. And but still, you never know when you're out on a walk like this. God knows, I don't know if there might be a dog in this town that I haven't met yet, and the thing just thinks I'm trying to walk onto its property and scare me. So I walked out with my ski poles and a pocket full of doggy treats, and didn't need them because Darwin's dogs were sweet, so nice. They both had these pink outfits on too, and Chica ended up I guess I threw the ball too close to an area with a barbed wire fence, and Chica dove through the fence, and the barbed wire caught her outfit, and she jumped right out of the outfit. And it was probably 100 yards away. So I went and picked it up and got the outfit back so Darwin wouldn't have to make that trek, because Doesn't look like a guy that needs to be walking an extra 100 yards if he doesn't need to at his age. You know what I mean? Out here in this cold, poor Darwin. So yeah, I've been here a week. I worked this weekend. I worked on Friday and Sunday. Friday I worked 9 to 2. I was supposed to work. I worked 9 to 1. I served a burger to a hunter, and I made breakfast for Loren's boyfriend Doug. Then I came back for the 4 to 8 p.m. shift, which turned into 4 to 7 because not one person came into the tavern from 4 to 7 on a Friday. And I'm like, okay, that's my winter's going to look like. Didn't work on Saturday, then worked on Sunday. And I went in from Sunday from 9 to what was supposed to be 2, and I ended up working 9 to 1. Mushroom Steve came in, and I got him to drink 6 Mike's Hard Lemonades, which he put on his on his tab, and we give him $1 off the regular price. So that was $18, plus he had a coffee, so I charged him for that, which is $19. I don't usually charge Steve for his coffee, but I wrote it down on his tab. And then Lynn Emmel came in, and I sold her a coffee. So I put rang $20 through the register. Big Sunday afternoon. And Lynn tipped me $1. Steve definitely won't tip me, but that's fine. I've actually refused his tips in the past because whatever money he has, I've told him, spend it on alcohol, bro. Like, I don't need your dollar. Kind of do. But if you knew Mushroom Steve, such a lovable, tough character. But Steve, it looks like Steve's getting closer to getting out of town. I picked him up some car parts last week. He owes me some money for those still. He's down to $25 from $70. He paid me $35, and then he paid me another $10 on Sunday. So he's down to owing me $25. He came by my house last week trying to sell me a hatchet and a backpack. The backpack, though, I was like, definitely not going to buy that backpack because I remember when Breaking Brad threw up on that backpack, and then you beat him up and threw him into a blazing fire at your campsite, and then he showed up the next day with a big shiner. I definitely don't want that backpack, and kind of wanted to buy the hatchet, but he wanted $50 for it. And it was a pretty nice hatchet. He told me it goes for $250. I don't think it really goes for $250. But I thought maybe if he came back a little later or the next day, I could get it for a little cheaper. But I have a hatchet on my motorcycle. It's really cheap. This one seemed actually like good quality, all solid steel handle. The other one I have is like some sort of like fiberglass handle that I covered in pink gaff tape. But it's like, I'm trying not to collect things. Certainly, I didn't really need another hatchet. But if I could have gotten a good price, I would have. But I'm glad. He said, Big Ron or Bill McIntosh, somebody anyway bought it off of him. He said they gave him $50 for it. So good for him. But Steve's got someone sending him $600, and he's got to get out of town. And now Steve, when I first met him, I asked Loren what his deal was, and she was like, kind of explain. He's just a rough and tumble alcoholic, drug user who been coming here for 25 years to Yellow Pine, and sometimes winters here, sometimes doesn't. Really makes his money by foraging for mushrooms and picking mushrooms. And he's a mushroom expert. He can sniff those mushrooms out. He's almost like a truffle pig. Definitely, I was going to say better looking. I don't know what a truffle pig looks like, so I actually can't tell you which is better looking because they might be quite handsome. Steve looks like he was quite handsome back in the day, but the years have added up. And you can see the years on his face. But super nice guy, super cool when he's not too drunk. I love chatting with him. He's just nuts, man, and he's just living life like I think I'm living life like kind of one day at a time. Steve is definitely out here just one day at a time. Like there was a situation over the summer where Steve made $600. He made $600 once and $400 another time, I think. He had built this huge, like, couch, I guess you'd call it, out of scrap logs and stuff that he found. It took 3 people to carry it. And he ended up selling that to a local. I think he sold that for $400. He was looking for $1,000. Finally sold it for $400. And then he had a big elk skull of an elk he had shot with his bow and arrow. And he sold that for $600. In both situations, he got the cash and just blew through it all within a day or two. And was just buying drinks for everyone in the tavern. People he'd never met before, just buying them drinks. Kept trying to buy me drinks. was just like so happy to have money and be treating everybody. And both times I tried to warn him to get the money to last, and neither time it lasted. I remember one time it was Saturday night, and I was like, Steve, after he had spent like $200, I was like, Steve, just will you do me one favor, a really important favor? Can you try to make some of this money last until Monday? And he was like, what day is it? And I was like, it's Saturday. It's Saturday at 10 p.m. And he goes, can't make any promises. And he's also a guy that, I think I probably told this before on the podcast, but Loren had told me that I was like, so he just lives in the woods here? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, so that's just where he lives, huh? And she's like, well, yeah. And in the Cascade jail. I was like, okay. In and out of jail all the time, constantly for probation violations and parole violations, because he just can't stop smoking weed. And they piss test him and they send him back to jail. So this time he's on probation for DWI, and then got caught with weed or something. I don't know, it's hard to keep track of all his cases, but he had to go to court recently via Zoom, and he came up to this house to do it. Candy and Willie's Zoom. But Willie had told me once he went to a sentencing hearing for him like 10 years ago, and the judge asked if he had learned his lesson. And Steve said, probably not, Your Honor, right before the sentencing, and then ended up the judge gave him a few weeks in jail or something. Not a huge deal. But this time he did a Zoom court appearance, and he got sentenced to 10 days, of which he's already served 4. So he's trying to figure out how to serve the last 6, but they don't want to let him in the jail right now because of COVID, apparently. So he keeps trying to turn himself in, and they keep saying, like, now is not a good time. We don't want you in this jail. And he's called his lawyer, and his lawyer's advice is just get out of town because the rest of the sentence, so I guess he owes them 6 days in jail, and then they offered him 2 years unsupervised probation if he leaves the state, or 1 year supervised probation and he can stay in the state. And I don't know that that's legal. Like I've never, like all I've ever heard about probation and parole stuff is like, you have to remain in the state or tell us if you're going to be leaving the state. But apparently these guys were just like, we've had enough of Mushroom Steve Bittenbender over here. And they told him, look, you can have 2 years unsupervised, but you got to leave the state. And he was like, well, all right. And he's apparently going to go to Oregon if he can get his truck working and moving. And some people have sent him he's got $600 coming in the mail, which might be here Friday or the following Monday, depending on the mail truck. And he's going to use that money to pay off. He's got a $50 tab at the store where he buys his little bottles of vodka. And he's got God knows how much of a tab with Loren and 25 with me. But he was like, I use $300 to pay everyone off, and the other $300 I'll use for gas to get to Oregon. And then I can make $200 a day picking mushrooms, which is good money. He's also trying to scrape up a little more money with odd jobs. I wish I had an odd job for him. I don't, or else I'd let him work off that $25. But I'm gonna make him pay me. Because what everybody says about Steve, Mushroom Steve, is that super honest. He won't lie to you, and he won't steal from you. But he's just otherwise is just a mess. And I get it. I think I talked in the past on here about that time he ended up with all the money. And I think a guy like that probably doesn't know what to do with money. So when he has it, he just spends it all and like lets it back out into the universe and just builds up his karma. And then he's broke again, and then he doesn't have to worry about anything, which I totally admire, right? The whole more money, more problems thing. So like I love Steve's vibe for that reason. Steve is also good buddies with Bad News Blanton, and I don't think I got into this, but a few weeks ago, I think when I had just gotten back from New York, I heard the story about how Steve had bought a pickup truck, brought it up here, sold it to Blanton, then went down to McCall, got another pickup truck for like, I think the one he had, he paid $400 for, and maybe the one he had, he paid $50 for, then sold it to Blanton for $100. I don't know how it even made it up here, but then he got another one for $400. It's been sitting. It's a 1981 Ford F-150 with 300 cubic inch engine. So says Steve. That's the information he gave me when I needed to buy parts for him at the Napa. And so apparently he sold one of these trucks to Blanton, and Blanton was driving down the street, coming down this one hill, and there's this family called the Morgans. The Morgans, the Mormons, people refer to them as. They've never been in the tavern, obviously. And Blanton, I heard the story and it made sense to me. But then I went over to the Morgan's house and kind of like looked, and he had to do a whole 90-degree turn to crash into their house. Like I thought maybe like he just wasn't paying attention and went too far. But he was on a road that the Morgan's house was on. A bag had fallen out onto the ground, and he reached out to get it. And I assume it was a bag of dope that Mushroom Steve had dropped, because Steve was in the car in front of him, but I have yet to confirm that. But apparently Blanton, who was not a nimble individual, opened the car door, pickup truck door, leaned out, and then almost fell out and yanked the steering wheel all the way to the left, and then had carried a bunch of speed and then crashed it into the Morgan's house. And then the Morgans, not only did they tell him like not to worry about it, but they invited him over for dinner a couple nights later. And like, man, that's what Jesus would do, right? And they're Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. What would Jesus do? Jesus, when someone crashed into his fucking house in a pickup truck or whatever, a donkey, whatever they were driving around back in 0 BC, Jesus would invite them over, right? Jesus wouldn't get mad. So like, they're good people as far as I'm concerned. I got to meet the Morgans. I'm going to tell them all about my history at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm laughing. I'm not going to get all into it all now, but I've been to two Mormon weddings, and I ended up with a lot of Mormon friends over the years, all of whom I met through the music business, or for the most part, I met through the music business, and then through their friends, and yeah, it's an interesting little situation there. Just like most religions, though, like why do we get so upset about the Mormons and the Scientologists? Like, we get upset about them because we feel like they should know better, right? That you guys should know better. This is a cult, right? Because the Mormons, the book that Joseph Smith somehow supposedly discovered, that wasn't until the 1800s, right? And the Scientologists is like, that shit was all created by a guy in the 50s. But like, why should they know better? But the people who wrote the Bible and the Quran and the, whatever you call that thing, the Torah, is that even, I know so little sometimes about religion. Is the Torah just the Old Testament, or is it a whole separate book? I don't know. Maybe it's a whole different read when you read it back to front, like those like those Orthodox Jews on the subway do. You know, when they read from right to left and back to front. Talk about ass backwards, right? But like, why do Christians supposedly get a pass because I don't want to put myself in that, raised Catholic, but why do Christians get a pass because they're talking about a book that was written 2,000 years ago? Like, even more reason to think that it's all phony, right? That it hasn't been translated right. At least with Scientology, like, the guy was alive until somewhat recently, right? And the guy wrote the book of Scientology or whatever, and like came up with this whole thing. Like, at least you could have met that guy and decided whether or not you believed him or not. Like, nobody's met the apostles, right? Nobody you know has met an apostle, right? And neither of their parents or their parents or their parents, yet it's so like, well, that's a real religion. Christianity's a religion, right? Protestants are a religion. Adventists, whatever, Christians, Catholics, all the Christians are a religion, right? Judaism is a religion. It's also, they say, it's a race too, right? And Muslims is a religion. But like, how is their religion any more real than Scientologists, right? Or Mormons? Like, it's all fucking fake, man, and it's all about how you carry yourself, right? Like, these days, right, Christians pro-life, the Christian right is so pro-life and doesn't want any abortions to happen, yet they're stoked when they love going to war, right? They love when Kyle Rittenhouse shoots rioters, quote unquote. Like, so many of the evangelicals and the modern day Christians are like, they're not good people. You're not practicing goodness, right? Like, you're talking about poor being a choice, right? That's not the Christian way, is to like love your brother and take everybody in and do for other people and donate and tithe and all that kind of shit. And like, you know, pay your fucking taxes, man. Tithe to the church. Because when people used to tithe to the church, the money was to do good things, right? And help people in need. And that's why churches host so many soup kitchens. And like, so the Morgans, I think the Morgans they walk the walk. You know what I mean? They don't just talk the talk. Though I haven't met them. they were very nice to Bad News Blanton, and I think not a lot of people have been nice to Bad News Blanton over his life, hence why he's become such a bad news kind of character. And so I want to meet the Morgans, but I don't know. I don't know that they're up here for the winter. There's not many people left. Very few people. We haven't really gotten snowed on up here. We've gotten a couple little dustings of snow, but I can see the snow in the mountains that are just outside of town. There's snow at the top of the mountains, and there's definitely a lot of snow when I came in here, which I guess at this point now is 10, 12, 11 or 12 days ago. There was a lot of snow on Big Creek Summit, so I guess I'm going to go out next week to see Whitney Cummings in Boise next weekend, the weekend after Thanksgiving. So that'll be my first trip back out. If my car works, knock on wood. A couple of people checked in this week because I mentioned last week that I had tried to start my car and it was shaking in a way I hadn't felt it shake before. So a couple of people asked this week, hey, have you started your car? Someone asked today, and Adam Bauer asked on, when did I talk to Adam? Friday? Saturday? Sunday? I don't know. I lose track of that too. But yeah, so anyway, people have been asking if you started your car, and I was like, no, I don't know where the keys are. And I found the keys in the laundry room today. I only have one key to my car, which is a little nerve-wracking, but I keep it on a Prince keychain that Lance Rockworthy got me when he visited, what's that place called? Paisley Park. It's a great Prince keychain too. It's a square. It's a picture of him from, Jesus, what is the album? I think it was just the first album where he's shirtless and he's kind of got like his hair parted in the middle and looks so young and so different, and so looks almost like an innocent prince. But anyway, I found my key. I haven't started my car again yet. Maybe I will tonight, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. What's the rush? I do want to start it somewhat frequently to just make sure the engine runs, and God knows, I don't know anything about how engines work. But I know that like the more frequently you start them, probably the better it is for it. And, you change the oil. Otherwise, you bring it to mechanics. That's what I know about cars. So hopefully mine's going to work for my trip to Boise. But yeah, so I've been here a week, and I gave myself a bit of the weekend off. I think I talked about it on the podcast last week that I wrote on Monday of last week, and then I recorded the podcast Tuesday morning, and then I wrote more on Tuesday, and then more on Wednesday, and more on Thursday, and I was somewhere between 2 and 3.5 hours of writing every day, hoping to get to 4, but I'm like just easing myself into the process. I took Friday off to work at the tavern, and then I watched this documentary. I watched it Thursday night, then I watched another episode on my break from the tavern Friday, and then finished it Friday night. Oh my God. Documentary about the clothing brand Von Dutch. I don't want to say much about it, but the homie John Z was like, you got to watch this. And I was like, I'll pass. I don't want to watch a documentary about Von Dutch. That's pretty much the douchiest brand of my lifetime. Like, there was, what was it? Zubaz, goofy. Z Cavarici, little douchey, right? Von Dutch, nothing but douche associated with that brand, right? And I was like, I'm not interested. And then he was like, bro, it's so good. And Z's never really steered me wrong with things to watch. So I was like, you know what? I was just looking for something to watch. And I was like, all right, I'm going to fucking watch it. And, I was hooked so fast. I don't want to say much, but it's like the backstory to how that brand was created and like became a thing is almost as wacky as Tiger King and all the characters that show up and are in this story. It's 3 episodes, and I fucking loved it. And, so I did that on Friday, and I specifically was taking Friday off from writing because I had to work at the tavern all day, and I can't really like write when I'm there. It's a whole weird thing about being there. I don't just like sit and vibe when there's no customers. I don't like being there when there's no customers. I feel on edge, and I want a customer to show up, but at the same time, I don't want them to show up, but I can't really like delve into something to read. You can't really get into it. Maybe I'll bring my paints down there and do some painting. When I get stuck there. Like, I might have to work this Friday. But yeah, I wrote 4 days in a row. Then Friday I worked. Saturday I woke up and I was like, I'm not doing anything today. And I did what the kids call a wake and bake. And at like 10:45, I fucking, in the morning, I took a little hit of the toot toot. And then I just got in the recliner and I watched a bunch of different things. I watched documentary about Andre the Giant. I watched a documentary about Dusty Rhodes, one about Bobby the Brain Heenan. I tried watching this movie with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds and Gal Gadot. I love The Rock goofy action comedy movies, but this sucked so bad. It was on Netflix, and I really wanted to like it. And I was like, I'll even put aside my feelings about Gal Gadot and her stupid Imagine thing that she did at the beginning of the pandemic. And I tried to watch it, and I was like, yo, this just sucks. It just like, they just greenlight these movies for idiots, I guess. Like, it's been a while since I've seen an action film. But like, that one about Adam Sandler, Murder Mystery or whatever, when he goes to Italy with his wife and gets involved in a murder mystery, fucking hilarious. Like this one about with The Rock, it was just so poorly written. Like, The Rock and Ryan Reynolds should have been a fucking comedy gold, but it just sucked. Anyway, I spent most of the day Saturday high and eating junk food, and it felt really good to just do nothing for an entire day up here. I didn't even, barely got into nesting. I didn't put anything away. And then Sunday I went back into work to help cover for Lorin so Doug, her boyfriend, could go collect firewood. And I went in there, and from 9 to 1, I just had Mushroom Steve drinking his 6 fucking Mike's Hard Lemonades and Limel drinking a coffee. And that was it. And boy, I'm not looking forward to more work like that this summer. But yeah. Will I do whatever it takes? Yeah, I'll do whatever it takes. But so the writing, I got back into that today. And woke up this morning, had therapy, which is an interesting one today. Talked about some heavy stuff. One of the things I did last week that I was excited about is I made sure to talk to at least one friend on the phone every day, which felt really good because I've been so much on the run lately, and by lately I mean since July, since I started coming up to Yellow Pine regularly and working here. It was like I was never really settled, and when I was settled in the middle of the woods with no cell service. And then I would come back to McCall for a day or two, but a lot of times I was going down to Boise, hang out, or going just on long motorcycle trips on my days off, and I just needed to ground myself again. And I'm glad I got back into the writing, but I almost felt like it was hard to do. It didn't feel like too much too soon, but it was hard to do every day. And then it was hard to get back into today after taking 3 days off, but I forced myself into 2 hours of it. And that's what I'm getting to. Today was tough because I was forced. I sort of last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Monday, I really went to work on the prologue, sort of opening, setting the scene for the book. Tuesday, I really drilled down my outline and spent a lot of time rereading stuff and deciding to trash a lot of stuff. And Wednesday and Thursday, I started writing about my childhood and more of that into today. And today sort of came out of the childhood years, and I really got into really the beginnings of my issues with sexual molestation. And shit, man, 2 hours of writing about that and thinking about that was kind of enough today. So at the 2 hour mark, I was literally watching the second hand on the clock. And I finally was just fuck it. I can't do this anymore. Okay, 2 hours, that's my minimum for the day. And I went out for a long walk. And I thought a lot about how that shit happened, especially since treatment, right? That treatment is when I really started unloading about that. Or not unloading, but letting it out in ways that I hadn't before. I had told a couple people about it when I first got to New York and made jokes about it. And then over the years, every now and then, yeah, I sucked a guy's dick. Everyone should, and people just stare at me dude, what the fuck are you talking about? And the one time I brought it up to an ex-girlfriend, she made me feel really lousy about it. So it's been really hard, and the hardest thing today was not even writing about it. It was more just putting myself back in that headspace, and writing about the particulars wasn't as hard as just being facing it all again and imagining it and seeing that shit happen in my head. And also, I suffered and still suffer a lot of uneasiness about what went down and about how much I brought it on myself, which I know the answer is none, but also, was it really none? Like, yeah, if I was 14, working at a movie theater and this guy was keeping me late afterwards and turning on the projectors and showing me movies and giving me alcohol and weed and slowly starting to touch me until it turned into like full on sex. Like, yeah, I'd like to think that I knew what the fuck I was doing when I was 14 and I let it happen and that I wanted it to happen. And that's shit I've grappled with forever. And I go through with therapy too, and went through a lot in Florida. And it's like, I didn't know what I wanted to have happen when I was 14, right? But it was because of shit that happened before that. And I'm writing about it anyway. I didn't want to turn this into the rundown of everything that's happened to me, because like I'll get there, and I'm gonna get there more tomorrow, and I'm just trying to find a narrative thread in how this all happened is forcing me to look at it in a lot of different directions, from a lot of different directions that I haven't necessarily like chosen to see lately. And I mean, this is shit that I'm gonna have to unpack for the rest of my life. Like, it felt great to get it out in treatment and group therapy and stuff, and it's, I guess, feels good, I don't know, good to talk about it, but I brought it up more in therapy. But that shit fucks you up, man, and it can continue to fuck me up, and now here I am choosing to go through it again, and I'm going through this book in a chronological way now, and I was given a lot of thought today, like, man, just jump ahead, and it's like, nope, I'll be doing jumping ahead later, but I need to get all this shit out. And at least, like, some of the most fucked up things that happened to me happened between childhood and moving to New York. So I want to get to the part about moving to New York. And plenty more fucked up things happened to me. But a lot of it was definitely more of my creation. And I wouldn't say that I was a victim of things happening to me. I mean, definitely when you're fucking 10 years old and you're getting sexually abused, you're a victim, right? And if you're 14 and a guy in his 20s is feeding you drugs and alcohol, like, definitely that's victim vibes there, right? And when your high school teacher lures you into his house and gets you drunk and fucks you, it's still kind of victimhood, right? But like, I was 18 then. So was I a victim? I don't know. I should have known. Like, I knew what I was doing, right? But it was all clouded by how I had been treated by older men in the past doing these things to me. So I really want to get that out, at least first draft, and then move on from there. And I don't want to, like, I want to eat my vegetables before I eat my dessert. I feel like a lot of the writing I'm going to be doing about my adult years, even the darkness about being suicidal and all that stuff, that's going to be the dessert. And I want to get over the meaty part now and the vegetable part, right? I want to get all this shit out, at least in the first draft, and get it out in a way that's at least somewhat as concise as I want it to be in this book. So yeah, today was really tough because I got in a good rhythm with 4 days in a row of writing, and then I took 3 days off to just kind of decompress. Got higher than I probably should have for longer than I should have, but it felt really good, I gotta say too. Just smoke a little weed, man. One hit, fucking put the pipe down, go sit down for 10 minutes, and you're gonna be as high as you needed to be. I always had that issue when I smoked weed in my younger years that was like, I'm going to smoke this whole joint. And it's like, yeah, but like after you get through half the joint, you're feeling fucking awesome, so why keep smoking? But it's the same thing I had with drinking too, in that no matter how drunk I ever got, I always thought that like one more drink would make me feel a little bit better. And that's the issue, I think. I think that's the issue that a lot of alcoholics have, is that not being able to stop or turn it off and feel compelled to have one more. And I think because you think that one more is going to make you feel better, and when it doesn't, you're still chasing that somehow, even though like, just stop drinking for a while. Like, meaning for months or years, but I mean, stop drinking tonight. Like, let an hour go. But I would always, like, if I would sit out around and drink a water, everyone else was having drinks, and I'd want another drink. And I think that was part of my issue with weed when I was in my younger years. Weed never really held much sway over me as an adult. I think not until like the 2010s. And I started picking it back up again every now and then and would take one puff. I'd go out to a show, the Mercury Lounge or something, or a show at the Garden, and just like have one puff, put it out, and just be like, this is perfect. And then like an hour later, it's faded off, and you're like, well, that was fun, right? And I didn't really have compulsion to have more. Which is a great way to handle weed like that. I certainly don't want to become an all-day, every day. I don't want to become an everyday smoker. Certainly not an all-day, every day. Which I know a lot of people who that works for. But I think that shit can be just as dangerous as any other drug, right? In that, no drugs affect people the same way. Alcohol doesn't affect people the same way. Some people are mean drunk. Some people are happy drunk, right? Like, everybody's body chemistry is different. So, like, can Keith Richards do a little dab of heroin every now and then? I guess so, if he says he can, right? Just made me think of Anthony Bourdain, who would, like, put down heroin but kept drinking. And obviously, drinking must have played a factor in the guy taking his own life, because definitely seemed to drink more than he should have. I watched some Anthony Bourdain over the weekend too, so he was on my mind. But yeah, that shit was heavy today. I think I learned a couple things, which is A, just get into the heaviness and go through it, and two, B, I guess is maybe not to take 3 days off in a row of writing now that I'm in it, because it was hard to get that engine revving again today, metaphorically speaking. And so yeah, I guess I'm going to have to write a little more frequently, but this is a whole process. And yet again, here's another podcast this week without any topic. So, of course, I still wonder who finds this interesting. But yeah, next week I'll be back and I'll have lots to talk about with how the potluck goes. Yeah, I'm ending early. I usually go an hour, but I don't have that much to talk about today. So what are we, 47 minutes in? 46? I'm going to let myself end this one early, just like I let myself have Saturday completely off into myself. And next week I'm going to try to come up with more things to talk about, unless I can think of something else to talk about right now, which I can't. I probably could. I could extend this just for the sake of extending it, and I'm not going to do that. It's very hard, though, because I almost never go less than an hour. Jesus. Fuck. Well, that's it. Reinvention, right? There was something else. I can't even talk about that. Nope. Had a conversation with my boy Chi-Chi the other day. Definitely not fodder for this one. Yeah. I don't even know how to get into that, but that is a topic I will not touch on this podcast. Anyway, my friend Chi-Chi, I'm going to have him on soon. I think I'm going to have to do another one of those how the music business really works things. And I guess eventually I'll get to more interviewing some friends, which maybe that'll, help me from feeling lonely up here. Not feeling lonely at all yet. This makes me think of that White Stripes song, I'm Lonely, but I'm Not That Lonely Yet. I love that fucking song. Listened to it again the other day and heard a verse in there that I hadn't... The song was kind of lighthearted. Or so I thought, because he was talking about, like, I think I just never really paid too much attention. But the song is, I'm lonely, but I ain't that lonely yet. And the opening lines are, well, I miss my mother and I miss being her son as crazy as I was, because I wasn't much of one. Sometimes I miss her so much I want to hop on the next jet, and I get lonely, but I ain't that lonely yet. And I thought about that, obviously, because I've thought a lot about my mother over the past few years, but especially since treatment. And yeah, I do think about her, and as crazy as I was and as crazy as she was, it was like oil and water. And sometimes I do think I want to hop on the next jet, and maybe I want to see her, and then I realize I'm lonely, but I'm not that lonely yet. But it was really the fourth verse that really got to me, and he was talking about going down to the river. And he says, I went down to the river filled with regret. I looked down and I wondered if there was any reason left. I left just before my lungs could get wet. I'm lonely, but I ain't that lonely yet. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like that I got. And just the the idea of throwing yourself in a river seems so, I don't know why that seems so much more brutal than like jumping off a roof or a bridge or something. And like, yeah, you jump off a bridge, you're probably going to land in a river, right? That's when people jump off a bridge, it's usually into a river. But that's not going down to the river and looking down into the water and like getting your lungs wet and actually just throwing yourself in. That guy's got a way with words, right? Yeah, I don't even know why I got into that. But yeah, I was talking about being lonely, and I ain't that lonely yet. I'm not really lonely, and I do like the solitude, and I'm more anxious about getting lonely than I am lonely, for sure. And I don't know. As long as you guys keep texting me, telling me you're listening to this podcast, you can hit me at 917-443-7615, or send me some mail like I talked about last week. I did get a couple nice things in the mail. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Hillary. Hillary sent me, I'm not going to say last names here, especially because Hillary sent me something that I don't think was legal. And yeah, that's it. I got a turntable cover in the mail today. It was nice. I got a package. Got a couple, 2 care packages, a turntable cover, and a postcard. A postcard from Emmy. And I am going to return mail to these people. And I'm going to return mail to anybody else who sends me anything. So, send me something. P.O. Box 113, Yellow Pine, Idaho, 83677. And I would like to once again turn your attention to rocksoff.bigcartel.com, where, since it's the holiday season and it's Thanksgiving time and Black Friday's coming up, I have put coloring books on sale. I've specially priced the coloring books. I still have about 200 coloring books from the ones I ordered last year that I'm trying to get rid of. So order them in bulk, give them out. They make great stocking stuffers, great Christmas presents, especially great for Secret Santa if you want to freak your HR people out at your job, if you have a corporate kind of job. But yeah, order all the coloring books you can, because I'm not going to shut up about them until they're gone, because I don't want to move them from wherever I move to next from here. I don't want to have to deal with these coloring books. I want to have to deal with as little as possible. And I didn't even have that much to move up here, yet I'm still trying to figure out how to pare down what I have. So if you're going to send me a care package, don't make it full of like trinkets and knickknacks, please. Unless it's like, you got a little Angus Young figurine maybe, I'll stick that up. But like, I'm just trying to get rid of my shit. I want to have so little stuff that when I keep moving in the future, it's as easy as possible. And I will tell you that I haven't been lonely, like I said. I'm more anxious about the idea of being lonely up here than I think I will actually be lonely. I think Thanksgiving is going to be a little weird, and Thanksgiving weekend and Christmas is definitely going to be a little weird. Because I tend to get lonely on those holidays, and even New Year's, just because everyone else, the thing is, I gotta fucking stay away from social media on those days, because everyone else is posting being with their family and friends and whatnot, and then, I'm not. But I don't really want to stay away from my phone either, because I want to get messages from friends, so I don't know how I'm going to deal with it on Thursday. I actually do. I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to write my ass off Thursday morning, and then I'm going to go to the potluck at the community hall, and I'm going to have a good time with the people in my town. Because this is a town I chose to live in. And I might not have a lot in common with these people, but what we all have in common with each other is that we're crazy enough to fucking live year-round in Yellow Pine, Idaho. The goddamn fucking middle of nowhere. You gotta be a little insane to end up in a place like this. So yeah, we have that in common. If I look at that as the thing that bonds all of us, well, that's way cooler and way more of a life decision. Who you vote for, it doesn't matter. You're going to vote for someone else next time. And I'm a fucking idiot when it comes to politics. Obviously, I think I'm a communist, definitely a socialist. Not really a communist, definitely more of a socialist. I believe in like strong social programs for people who don't have luck. Like, what is it that Booker T said, right? In Born Under a Bad Sign, if it wasn't for bad luck, I wouldn't have no luck at all. And like, I've had so much bad luck for shit that happened to me, talking about sexual abuse and fucking crazy parents and crazy family and crazy uncle and physical abuse. But there are like, through it all, I've also had good luck throughout so much of my life. And I totally understand that I've been blessed with a certain amount of good fortune. I don't know why. And I've talked about it a lot on that podcast with Matt and Jesse, the Stoke the Fire podcast, and I kind of like, I, I owe one of the first questions that came up from Jesse in that one was, don't you feel like you were put here for a purpose, man? Like something, there was some power that wanted you to live, and I kind of went into it how I didn't like that. I never really felt that way, and I'm still trying to work that shit out in my own head how that happened. But what I can say is that I've had a lot of good fortune, right? I've had a good fortune to be born intelligent. And I've fed that intelligence, I think, through voracious reading and thirst for knowledge and trying to educate myself long past when education ended, right? When I dropped out of college, dropped out of high school once, then I ended up dropping out of college. I went for 1 year, barely studied when I was there. But then I've taken continuing education classes. I read like a motherfucker. I try to satisfy my curiosity in any way that I can. I ask a lot of questions when I meet someone who's an expert at something. I fucking pick their brain forever. So I've been blessed to be born with intelligence, to be born relatively good looking. Obviously, to be a white male has been helpful in a lot of ways. And it bothers me when people don't see that kind of shit, right? When they're like, everyone can fend for themselves, pick themselves up by their bootstraps. Man, I'm so fucking happy I'm not black. You know what I mean? Like that would be really tough. Like nothing against, like nobody chooses how they're born, right? But like I'm glad. It's not that I'm happy I'm not black. But I am. I'm happy. I'm fucking happy to be white, right? Like to be born a white dude, I can get away with whatever the fuck I want for the most part. Like I certainly, like if I was black and done all the same shit I'd done, I'd have been locked up a long time ago, maybe even fucking executed by now, because I would have just kept getting railroaded by the system. And so, but I'm talking about politics. It's not even really about politics, but what I'm getting at is that like. People identify themselves on political lines because, especially I think coming from places like out here in more rural areas, it's just like it's really ingrained in you from when you're a kid. I don't think, like if you actually had a conversation about politics and how things work with a lot of these people, I don't think they'd fucking understand. They certainly would probably lose their shit once you started explaining to them that like, well, people of color have had it worse off generationally and over the years and systemically. So like you can't just say that like just because they quote unquote have equal rights now that they should all be rich too, and it's a failing of their own if they're poor, you know. But what I'm what I'm trying to get at in a roundabout way is that like these people that I'm up here with, as much as they might be Trumpers, like that's a small part of their personality because really it affects on a day-to-day basis, it affects them very little, right? But moving up to a place like this affects all of us on a fucking day-to-day basis, and just trying to figure out how to survive up here, especially through the winter. The people who come up here just for the summers, that's one type of person, right? But some of them spend most of the summer up here, but they all have another place to go to. Whereas the people who are just here, like it's their only place. And that's something I started getting worried about the other day too, but I'll get in that in a second. But the idea of spending Thanksgiving with these people is that like I can find some common ground with these people in that we've all chosen to be up here. We've chosen for this to be our only residence. And if we want to get out of here, we have to rely on either money we have to rent a place to go somewhere in the wintertime, or we have to rely on the kindness of friends that will host us in their home. So like me, if I want to fucking get the fuck out of here, if I want to go back to New York, thankfully I have a lot of people who would put me up. I think Stouds is probably number one because she's got a nice guest bedroom, but plenty of people have said I could come stay with them wherever. I know I have a lot of different places to go, but like the common ground I have with these people is like, hey, we all fucking chose to be up here, right? And whoever's here on Thanksgiving are people who chose not to go be with their families for whatever reason. Like Loren's going to go see her mother. Usually the tavern does Thanksgiving, but this year it's going to be at the community hall because Loren's going to be out of town. I'll be curious to see who's up there and what the vibe is like, and I'll report back about that. But I'm excited to actually be spending a Thanksgiving with some sort of community, which I haven't done. I had Thanksgiving in Ocala, Florida, in the Nut House, and that was a nice Thanksgiving day. And then actually the next day, my friend Nelty came and picked me up and took me to St. Augustine, Florida for the day. So it was a pretty good Thanksgiving weekend. But I don't know that I've ever had like a town Thanksgiving, right? I did Thanksgiving in Botswana at least once, I think twice. They don't really get Thanksgiving over there though. Like I didn't even bother trying to explain it to them, and then certainly wasn't going to find a turkey in the middle of the fucking Sahara or the Kalahari Desert, sub-Saharan. But yeah, so I'm excited. I somehow made this thing go an hour, and I feel much better about myself because of it. But I'm excited to have this experience, and then I'll be excited to, like, by the time I leave to go see Whitney Cummings in Boise, I will have spent up here for 3 straight weeks. And then I assume when I get back from that, it'll be at least another 3. Maybe I'll end up going to see, maybe I'll do something for Christmas. I don't know what that might be. But it'll be another few weeks up here, and then I think shit might start getting weird when the real snow starts really coming in, January, February, icing over and all that kind of stuff. So might as well get out of here, go see Whitney Cummings, maybe get out of here again for Christmas, see what happens, talk about getting some chains on my tires. God knows what's going to happen. Hopefully this car will just keep making it where it needs to go. And yeah, I mean, what else? I got more food than I know what to do with here. And by more food, I mean I got fridge full of shit from Misfits Market, organic produce that they had delivered. I got another delivery coming. I actually don't know if it's going to come Friday or Monday because of the holiday and the disruptions and all that, but I got plenty of vegetables. I got sweet potatoes. I got canned shit out the wazoo. I'm not going to starve up here. Even got a frozen pizza for when I want to feel naughty and eat some bullshit. And I guess that's it. Thanks for listening once again. Like I said, text me, 917-443-7615. You could also use that number to Venmo me some loot if you want, since I only made $1 on Monday. But really what I'd appreciate more than anything else in this world is mail. I love going to the fucking post office and having something in there. And honestly, there's nothing more depressing than when you put your key in the box and turn it and there's literally nothing there. It's like not even a goddamn fucking magazine subscription. So please send me some mail. P.O. Box 113, Yellow Pine, Idaho 83677, and buy a coloring book or 100. If you buy all 100, I might even personally deliver them. No, I won't really, because whatever, $500, whatever. But you don't buy all 100. That would be stupid. More people want them. But buy multiple copies. Give them away as Christmas presents. Enjoy it. I'm thinking about making another calendar. If I do, you'll know it by next week, and I'll really get into it. Anyway, thanks for listening to Tuesdays with Jakey. God bless. Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for whatever the fuck you want to reach for. Whether it's the stars or something beyond the stars or something in front of the stars. Maybe it's a loved one you just want to hug and hold and talk to them on the phone and tell them, I'm sorry, I'm a crazy person, but love me anyway. Whatever it is, do more of it, right? Do more of reaching out and connecting with your friends and your loved ones. And God bless you. God bless your whole family. Inshallah. Boop, boop.